There's something almost unearthly about the way an INFJ reads people. They can walk into a room and feel everything: tension, insecurity, hidden attraction. Before a single word is spoken, it's not guesswork, it's precision. Their empathy isn't just emotional, it's intuitive, almost psychic in how it detects what others can't even admit to themselves. Studies in emotional intelligence and high sensitivity reveal that INFJs don't just process emotions, they absorb them. Their brains show stronger activity in the regions responsible for empathy, intuition, and pattern recognition. That's why they notice when someone's fine isn't really fine, or when a smile hides exhaustion. But this gift comes with a cost: emotional exhaustion, overthinking, and the constant struggle to separate their own feelings from everyone else's. An INFJ's insight is both a blessing and a burden. It allows them to connect deeply, but also forces them to carry more than most. Yet despite the weight, they wouldn't trade it, because understanding people isn't just something they do, it's who they are. If you've ever felt emotions so deeply that you could sense them before they were spoken, this video is your mirror. Subscribe to Brainy One for more cinematic deep dives into INFJ psychology, and comment below: do you think emotional intelligence is a gift or a curse? They absorb emotional energy like an antenna tuned to human frequency. For the INFJ, emotions aren't invisible currents in the air, they're frequencies they can feel. It's as if their nervous system was built with invisible sensors, tuned to the subtle shifts in other people's energy. They walk into a room and instantly know who's hurting, who's pretending, and who's quietly falling apart. They don't need words, explanations, or confessions. They feel the truth in the silence between sentences. This sensitivity isn't something they choose. It's a reflex. They pick up on the slightest changes in tone, in posture, in the way someone's eyes drift away for a second too long. When someone's energy changes, the INFJ's body reacts before their mind even understands why. Their heart races, their mood shifts, and they feel emotions that don't belong to them. To others, it looks like intuition. To the INFJ, it feels like carrying invisible weight that no one else notices. But this gift comes at a cost. Being emotionally tuned to everyone around them often leaves them drained. They'll leave a gathering feeling exhausted without knowing why, until they realize they've been processing everyone's emotions as if they were their own. They've been absorbing sadness, anxiety, even hidden resentment, translating it into empathy and comfort without ever being asked to. It's an emotional labor they perform instinctively and quietly. Yet this sensitivity also gives them a kind of insight most people can't comprehend. They can sense when someone's about to break before that person even admits it to themselves. They feel lies like static interference, subtle, uncomfortable, impossible to ignore. And while others may see this as overthinking, the INFJ knows it's something deeper. Their empathy operates like radar, scanning emotions, decoding signals, understanding people on frequencies most never reach. But the real mastery comes when they learn to balance it, when they realize that feeling everything doesn't mean owning everything. With emotional boundaries, their empathy becomes power, not burden. They learn to tune in without getting lost in the signal, and in that control lies their quiet brilliance, the ability to understand others so deeply, yet still remain centered in themselves. Because when an INFJ learns to manage their emotional frequency, they stop being a sponge and start becoming a mirror, reflecting truth without absorbing pain. Their empathy is rooted in neurological sensitivity, not imagination. Most people think empathy is just about being kind or feeling for others, but for the INFJ, it's far deeper. It's biological. Studies on high sensitivity personalities reveal that their brains actually light up differently. The regions linked to emotional awareness, mirror neurons, and intuition show higher activity. That means when someone around them feels sadness, their brain doesn't just recognize it, it experiences it. The INFJ doesn't imagine your pain. Their nervous system relives it with you. This neurological wiring explains why they often understand emotions that aren't even spoken. A friend says, "I'm fine," and the INFJ feels a subtle ache that contradicts the words. A stranger's nervous laugh triggers a flicker of unease inside them. They process every tone, glance, and pause, not consciously, but instinctively. Their mind decodes emotion like a second language, translating energy into meaning before words even arrive. But this kind of wiring is both a gift and a burden. The same empathy that allows them to heal others also exposes them to emotional overload. They absorb suffering so easily that they sometimes forget which feelings belong to them. After listening to someone vent for hours, they'll carry that heaviness home, replaying every word, trying to make sense of pain that isn't theirs. And when they finally retreat into silence, it's not because they don't care, it's because they care too much. This neurological depth gives them an uncanny intuition about people. They can sense dishonesty before it's revealed, tension before it erupts, and sadness before it's confessed. They see the layers beneath people's actions, the psychology behind behavior, the unspoken story beneath every emotion. That's why people feel so understood around them, like they don't need to explain themselves. The INFJ already knows. But the real magic isn't just in how deeply they feel, it's in how gracefully they carry it. They don't judge, they don't expose, they simply understand. And in that quiet understanding lies something extraordinary, the kind of empathy that heals without speaking. Because for the INFJ, empathy isn't a performance, it's a neurological truth, a sensitivity wired into their very being. They don't imagine what you feel, they feel it with you. And that's what makes their presence feel almost otherworldly. They detect micro-expressions and tone shifts most people miss. An INFJ doesn't need someone to say, "I'm upset." They already know, long before the words surface. Their perception works like a high-resolution lens, picking up the invisible cues that slip past everyone else. A half-second flicker of discomfort in someone's eyes, a tremor in their voice that doesn't match the words, the way someone inhales before replying, like they're trying to choose between honesty and self-protection. These small, fleeting details that most people never register speak volumes to an INFJ. This isn't conscious effort, it's instinct. While others focus on what's being said, the INFJ listens to how it's said. Their attention isn't on words, it's on vibration, cadence, and timing. They can tell when a laugh hides exhaustion or when kindness masks guilt. Every change in tone sends a signal to their mind, and they interpret it with frightening accuracy. It's as though they see the emotional subtitles beneath every human interaction. But this ability can be overwhelming. Imagine sitting in a room and hearing not just one voice, but the emotional static of everyone present. The stress, the envy, the sorrow, the longing, all layered like overlapping frequencies. To the INFJ, human interaction isn't background noise, it's a symphony of emotion, and they're constantly translating the music. That's why social situations, even when pleasant, can leave them drained. They're not just hearing words, they're processing hidden emotions in real time. Still, this perception grants them a kind of quiet power. When someone lies, the INFJ doesn't need proof. They feel the fracture between words and truth. When someone's hurting, they sense the shift before tears fall. They become the friend who texts, "Are you okay?" before anyone else realizes something's wrong. And when they do speak, it's often with precision that feels uncanny, like they've reached into your thoughts and found the sentence you couldn't say aloud. This sensitivity is their hidden superpower, a radar that runs on empathy instead of judgment, but it's also what isolates them. They see too much, feel too deeply, and understand too quickly. Still, the INFJ doesn't expose what they notice. They store it quietly, respectfully, because real wisdom doesn't need to announce itself. They don't just read faces, they read souls, and that's what makes them unforgettable. Their intuition connects emotional patterns into precise insight. For most people, intuition feels like a gut feeling, something vague, fleeting, hard to explain. But for the INFJ, intuition is more like a silent algorithm constantly running in the background. It gathers fragments of emotion, tone, behavior, and memory, then assembles them into something astonishingly accurate. They don't just sense that something is off, they know why. They can connect moments others dismiss as random and recognize the emotional logic beneath them. It's not magic, it's mastery of subtle data. When an INFJ listens to someone, they're not just hearing words, they're mapping patterns. The way that person talks about love, what triggers their defensiveness, how often they self-sabotage when things get good. Over time, all those micro-observations fuse together into an almost psychic understanding. They'll predict a conflict days before it erupts, or feel distance forming before the other person has even admitted it to themselves. To the INFJ, people are emotional ecosystems, and every imbalance leaves a trace. They can see the connections between insecurity and control, kindness and guilt, silence and fear. They understand that human emotion is never random, it's rhythmic. That's why their insight feels surgical. They'll say something that pierces straight through confusion and lands exactly where truth lives. And though it looks like guesswork to others, it's really intuition, built from thousands of unseen emotional calculation. But this gift can be both profound and painful. Once an INFJ sees, they can't unsee. They can recognize manipulation masked as love, selfishness dressed as concern, and dishonesty disguised as charm. They feel compassion, but also distance, because awareness changes connection. It's hard to bond when you can see every hidden pattern beneath someone's words. Yet, when channeled with balance, this insight becomes one of their greatest powers. It allows them to guide, to comfort, and to heal, not by fixing people, but by understanding them beyond their defenses. They sense the emotional blueprint behind every action and gently reveal it, often without needing to say a word. Because an INFJ's intuition isn't just about knowing what someone feels, it's about understanding why. And once they see that pattern clearly, they stop reacting to people's behavior and start responding to their truth. They sense dishonesty by emotional dissonance, not logic. When an INFJ senses someone lying, it's rarely because of hard evidence. It's because something in the emotional music suddenly goes out of tune. A person's words might sound perfect, sincere, even poetic, but their energy vibrates on a completely different frequency. That disconnect, that invisible dissonance, rings loud in the INFJ's nervous system like a wrong note in a symphony. They can't always explain it logically, but they feel it instantly, in their gut, in their chest, in that quiet part of the mind that refuses to be fooled. It's not about cynicism or paranoia. INFJs genuinely want to believe people, but their emotional radar is too precise to ignore the static. They sense when affection feels rehearsed, when kindness hides motive, when enthusiasm masks insecurity. Even a slight pause before answering a simple question can make their intuition stir. Not because they're overanalyzing, but because the emotional flow just shifted. What others perceive as paranoia is actually pattern recognition. The INFJ doesn't need facts to detect lies. They feel when the energy behind someone's words doesn't match their tone or timing. They might let the person finish speaking, but internally, they've already marked the inconsistency. And while most people might get swept up in charm, charisma, or confidence, the INFJ quietly notes the misalignment between heart and speech, empathy and behavior. But here's the deeper truth. They rarely call it out. INFJs often pretend not to notice, choosing understanding over confrontation. They observe from behind calm eyes, giving people the space to reveal themselves. Because they know lies unravel on their own. So instead of arguing, they withdraw emotionally, creating a subtle distance. The liar might not even realize it at first until the INFJ's warmth fades into cool observation. This ability is both protective and isolating. It keeps them safe from deceit, but also makes trust harder to build. They wish they could believe words as easily as others do, but their empathy won't allow it. They don't need proof. Their intuition already gave them the verdict. Because to an INFJ, honesty isn't just about words aligning with facts, it's about energy aligning with truth. And when that harmony breaks, they can feel it, even in the quietest silence. They mirror others' emotions to understand them from the inside out. An INFJ doesn't just observe emotions, they enter them. When they're around someone in pain, it's as if their own heart shifts frequency to match the other person's. They feel sadness in their own chest, anger buzzing in their veins, joy lighting their eyes, emotions that aren't theirs, yet move through them like a reflection made real. It's not mimicry, it's empathy at a cellular level. This mirroring is how they understand people so deeply. The INFJ doesn't ask, "Why are you like this?" They become the feeling long enough to know. They wear another's emotional world like a temporary skin, sensing the weight of their fears, the rhythm of their hopes, and the quiet ache behind their silence. But this gift is double-edged. It grants connection, but steals energy. After helping someone heal, the INFJ often feels drained, not because they gave advice, but because they carried emotions that weren't theirs. Still, they wouldn't trade it, because in those moments of emotional reflection, they offer something rare in this world: the feeling of being truly seen. They don't analyze emotions from the outside. They walk through them barefoot and brave. They experienced empathetic fatigue when surrounded by chaos. When the world becomes too loud, the INFJ's gift begins to feel like a curse. Every raised voice, every unspoken tension, every flicker of pain in someone's eyes, they feel it. It seeps into them until their own emotions become a blur of other people's storms. What others call being sensitive, they live as a kind of emotional overload. 1,000 open tabs in their mind, all running at once. At first, they'll try to help. They'll listen, comfort, absorb, believing that empathy can fix the noise. But the more they give, the heavier it gets. Their nervous system, finely tuned to feel, starts to shut down in self-defense. That's when the fatigue hits, not physical, but spiritual. They go quiet, withdraw. To outsiders, it looks like indifference. In truth, it's survival. During these times, solitude isn't loneliness, it's medicine. They retreat into silence to recalibrate, to remember which feelings belong to them and which they borrowed. It's in that stillness that they recover their strength, their empathy reborn, sharper, but with boundaries this time. Because even the most intuitive souls need distance to breathe. And for the INFJ, peace isn't a luxury. It's how they keep their gift from consuming them. They translate pain into understanding instead of judgment. When most people witness pain, they recoil. They analyze, criticize, or look away. But an INFJ does the opposite. They lean in, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition. Somewhere inside, they've felt that same ache, maybe not in the same form, but with the same intensity. That's why when others rush to judge, the INFJ pauses. They know that every cruel word, every distant look, every self-destructive choice usually comes from an invisible wound. Pain speaks a language only the deeply empathetic can understand, and INFJs are fluent. When someone lashes out, they don't just hear anger, they hear abandonment. When someone lies, they don't just see deceit, they see fear of rejection. They decode suffering not through logic but through emotional resonance, and rather than condemning it, they turn it into quiet understanding, the kind that heals instead of harms. But this ability doesn't come without cost. Constantly translating pain wears on their spirit. They absorb emotions like water soaking into cloth, heavy, cold, impossible to wring out completely. And yet they keep doing it, not because they have to, but because they can't not. To an INFJ, understanding is the highest form of love. It's what transforms pain into connection and cruelty into compassion. They know that judgment closes doors, but understanding opens hearts. And in a world quick to condemn, their empathy becomes a silent revolution, turning every wound they've endured into wisdom that reminds others, you're not broken, you're just healing in a way most people will never see. They form emotional maps of people, predicting reactions before they happen. INFJs don't just understand people, they map them. Without even realizing it, their mind collects every tone, glance, and hesitation, weaving them into an emotional blueprint of who someone truly is. They notice how a person's voice shifts when they lie, how their posture tightens when they're hurt, how their eyes dim just before they pull away. To others, it looks like intuition. To the INFJ, it's more like pattern recognition, the kind built from deep emotional observation. Over time, this awareness turns into foresight. They begin predicting reactions long before they happen. They know when a friend will cancel plans, when a partner's affection is fading, when a coworker is about to snap under pressure. It's not mind reading, it's emotional calculus built on empathy, memory, and subtle cues that most people overlook. But this gift can be exhausting. Living with emotional maps means constantly tracking the unseen. They often sense conflict before it even exists, feeling the tension days before anyone else notices. And though it gives them a strange kind of control, it also isolates them. Because while others are just living in the moment, the INFJ is already 10 steps ahead, quietly preparing for emotional impact. Still, this ability is what makes them such powerful guides in relationships, mentors, and healers. Their intuition isn't mystical, it's earned. It's empathy refined into strategy. They don't just feel what others feel, they understand why they'll feel it next. And that's the quiet power of an INFJ, seeing the unseen, not to manipulate, but to protect, prepare, and bring peace to the chaos no one else even notices. They balance logic and empathy to navigate emotional truth with grace. For most people, logic and empathy are opposites. One demands distance, the other closeness. But for the INFJ, they coexist in perfect tension. When emotions run wild, their logic steps in like a calm hand on the shoulder. When logic grows cold, empathy returns to remind them that humanity matters more than precision. This constant dance between heart and mind is what makes their emotional intelligence so rare. It's not reactionary, it's refined. In conflict, they don't rush to defend or attack. They pause, read the emotional weather, and respond with balance. Their logic helps them separate truth from projection, while their empathy ensures they don't lose compassion in the process. It's what allows them to confront dishonesty without cruelty and speak hard truths without breaking connection. But this balance comes at a cost. The INFJ often feels caught between worlds, too logical for the deeply emotional, too emotional for the purely logical. They live in a quiet middle ground where understanding both sides becomes both their power and their burden. Yet, it's this very equilibrium that allows them to guide others through storms they themselves have already survived. Their grace isn't softness, it's strength disguised as calm. They've learned that the mind without heart becomes cruel and the heart without mind becomes blind. So they choose both, the clarity of logic and the compassion of empathy. And in that rare union, the INFJ becomes something extraordinary, a bridge between feeling and reason, a quiet force capable of healing others, not through judgment or persuasion, but through the pure elegance of understanding. The INFJ's emotional intelligence isn't just about understanding others, it's about surviving in a world that rarely understands them. They don't read minds, they read energy, nuance, and truth hidden between words. Their empathy is their compass, and their logic is the map that keeps them from getting lost in it. That's why people often feel seen, even healed, in their presence, because the INFJ doesn't just listen to your words, they feel what you meant to say. If you've ever been told you're too sensitive, too intense, or too deep, but you secretly know your empathy is a gift, not a flaw, you might just be one of them, the ones who feel everything, yet somehow stay grounded enough to carry others through their storms. Subscribe for more deep psychology and INFJ insights. And tell me in the comments, do you lead more with empathy or with logic when you face emotional situations?